All those things are unfathomable to me. I listened to your first two podcasts and you had Dylan on, and to listen to Dylan's explanation of imagining a cookie and tasting a cookie at a level 8 out of 10 tasting and feeling the cookie in her mouth, that's like alien stuff to me.
If you enjoy this podcast, show us some love and take a couple minutes to leave a 5-star review. It helps us get found by more listeners, and we greatly appreciate it. Aphantasia is a condition characterized by an inability to visualize mental images in one's mind. If you have just discovered that you or someone you love has aphantasia, or if you're just fascinated by the subject in general and love learning more about it, you are in the right place. The Discovering Your Mind podcast delves into all aspects of the mind's eye, including aphantasia, hyperphantasia, and everything in between. Welcome to the Discovering Your Mind podcast, brought to you by shanesbraindomain.com. I am your host, Shane Williams, also known as Shane's Brain, and today we're talking to the one and only Tony Ort, who I haven't talked to in a while. How you been there, Tony?
Hi, Shane. It's great to see you again.
Ditto. So what's up? What do you do for a living over there in Ecuador? That's where you're at, right? Ecuador?
I live in Ecuador, but I don't do my living here. I do my living online in the United States. So my job is working for TCN. TCN is a cloud-based communication system for call centers. So if you had a call center that taking all the calls for donations to the podcast, and you needed 100 agents to handle the massive flow of donation requests to your podcast, you could use my software to connect those agents with all the people who want to give you money.
All right. Cool beans. All right. And I understand that you don't have any hobbies and you can't afford your interests. Is that
I don't have any hobbies. If you ask me what I would like to do, I mean, high adventure is at the top of the list. I've tried skydiving and zip lining and all kinds of. I would do wing walking. If you gave me an opportunity to go out and risk my life, that's what I would like to do. But those things cost a bit of money. And insurance carriers don't like to provide insurance for people who do things like that. So I steer away from those things for expense reasons. If I were Richard Branson, I'd be right out there doing all that stuff.
In this episode, we will be referring to what we call the Apple graph. If you would like to view the Apple graph to play along and better understand what we're talking about, you can find it on shanesbraindomain.com in the Aphantasia and Beyond section. If you are unable to view the Apple graph for whatever reason, it is a graph divided into 6 sections. In the number 6 section, there is a very detailed image of a red apple. In the number 5 section, it is the same image but with less detail. Number 4 is still in color but has less detail and more basic shapes instead of detailed hues and gradients. Number 3 is the less detailed apple but in gray tones without the color. Number 2 is a simple outline of the apple. And number 1 is blank, indicating no visualization whatsoever. This is called aphantasia. All right, first thing I'd like you to do is imagine a red apple in your mind. Take a look at that apple graph that I sent you.
Yeah.
And let me know which one of those best represents what you saw in your mind's eye.
1.
A 1. All right, everybody, we have an aphantastic. It's exciting. Tell us a little bit about how long that you've known that you have aphantasia and if it's mattered to you at all. Has it affected your life at all, knowing that?
Well, you're the one who rocked my world about, 6-7 years ago, Shane. And you mentioned that you had this strange thing called aphantasia, and you explained to me what it was. And what you were explaining to me sounded perfectly normal to me. I didn't understand why you thought you were different. And then you went on to explain how you had done multiple interviews with people and found out that other people were seeing a 5 or a 6. And I didn't know if I believed you. until I went out and I confirmed the things that you were saying with the people that were in my life, and found out that, yeah, people are seeing an actual apple, and they can eat the apple, and they can taste the apple. They've got all these things going on in their heads I had no idea about until you mentioned this phenomenon to me. And that's when I learned about it. And to have been in my 50s before I found out that all those things were different, it's all your fault, Shane.
So the next thing I want you to do is imagine a horse in your mind. Is it like looking at a picture, or more of just a thought, or something else?
That's the idea of a horse.
Okay. Is there any color?
No.
Is there any difference whether your eyes are open or your eyes are closed?
No, I just get to see black when my eyes are closed.
Let's try and zero in a little bit on the horse in your mind. That obviously it's not a picture, it's not an image, but what is it? Can you try and describe how it's manifesting in your mind?
Well, it's just the idea of horse. There is nothing to see. I can't imagine the horse existing. I just imagine horse. That, it's just the concept of horse.
Is there any specifics though? Like, do you imagine a certain type of horse, a certain color of horse? Is the horse standing there? Is the horse running? Do you get?
Yeah, I guess that's
like that?
I guess it's for me a normal common horse is a brown horse. So I do think a brown horse, and maybe that's because my daughter has a horse and hers is a brown thoroughbred, and I'm thinking Dan. His name is Dan. I'm thinking Dan horse. That's the first thought that comes to my mind. But if you tell me to think of show horse, then I can think, oh yeah, I've seen show horses and seen them prance, and I can think, oh, okay, horses, a horse that prances with long combed mane. I don't see it, but I'm thinking that concept.
Okay, so you can get different details in your way if they're given to you. For example, could you put a birthday hat on the horse?
No, that's ridiculous.
I know. That's why I ask people to do it.
No, I can't put a birthday horse. That's the thing I was thinking about is if you asked me to imagine something that I had never seen before, I'm not sure what I would do.
So did your mind reject the birthday hat thing just because it's illogical, or just because you can't really kind of think of what that would look like?
I don't know what the difference is. I can't struggle. There's no image to put a birthday hat on the horse. What would I put the hat on? I can think of birthday hat, the concept of a birthday hat. Since I can't see a horse or a birthday hat, I can't put a hat on a horse.
Well, I get it. All right. What about sound? If the horse made a sound, could you hear it in your mind?
No, there's nothing there.
All right. So now we're going to try sequence visualization. So what I'd like you to do is imagine a cup on a table that you accidentally knock over. All right. So what type of cup was it?
It was a little, I guess, a teacup.
Okay. What color was it?
White.
What about the table? What kind of table was it?
A flat edge with nothing around it. Okay. It wasn't a table. It was just something for the cup to sit on.
Just a surface?
Yeah.
Okay. And how did the cup get knocked over?
You told me to knock it over, so I must have hit it with my hand.
When the cup knocked over, did anything spill out of it?
No.
So a lot of people describe that sequence happening as like a video. How would you describe how it manifested for you? What was it like?
Pretty mental. There's no visualization. For me, there's no such thing as true visualization, right? I think, okay, he wants me to think about knocking a cup off a table. So, okay, I'm thinking about what would happen.
So where did the details come from that I didn't give you? Where did the white teacup come from?
That's just the first thing that comes to my mind when I have to think about a cup. Don't know why, don't know where it came from.
So I developed that question to see what details the mind would fill in without them being given.
Yeah.
And it's interesting to note that there is some difference here between you and me. You seem to be able to focus in on something specific without the specifics being given, like you just described. Okay, this is the horse I'm most familiar with. This is kind of why I went to the teacup on the table. It's logical. It makes sense. But for me, it's so distant and vague that those details don't even happen.
I didn't decide that it was just there. I didn't decide that there need to be a color. It makes me think, what if there wasn't a color? What would happen? How would I feel then? And I think I would feel incomplete. I think I would feel like I wasn't doing enough if I didn't assign a color and some other details that didn't exist, satisfying my own needs for additional details by adding them.
Okay. Yeah, that is really interesting because my brain does not have that need. Like I feel like it's extremely simple and it's just like wants to go down the easiest path there is.
Yeah.
And so when people ask me these kind of questions, almost nothing happens. Almost nothing changes in my mind. It's more like information. I'm being given information, but my brain doesn't often come up with details like that.
What's your level of need to satisfy other people? Like not professionally, you want them to be satisfied with your work, but like, you're asking me to visualize these visualizations. I need to perform. I need to show Shane that he's asking me to do is important. I need him to be happy with me. So I need to do my best. What's your level of need?
Oh, that is such an interesting concept. I'm glad we stopped and talked about this a little bit because that's really interesting. I don't feel a pressure or a need to please anybody.
Yeah.
I just it is what it is.
Yeah.
And so I don't feel that.
I wonder if that's the difference. I wonder if that's why I need to tell you that there's a color. I need to see it through it. I need to feel like there was something had a color because you need me to see a cup. So the best I can do is tell you that, there must have been a white teacup, whatever.
Do you feel like you have an inner monologue?
Yeah, I think I do. I think it's pretty negative.
Okay. Can you describe what it's like? I mean, a lot of people describe, an actual, they hear their voice talking to them, or how about you? How does it work for you?
No, it's just my thoughts, talking to myself inside my head. And there's no voice. It's just me thinking to myself.
One of the things that I really have a hard time explaining to people, and I'm just going to ask you and see if maybe you've got a better explanation than I do, but how do you think without images? What is a thought? Like I describe it as that too. It's thoughts. But for so many people, thoughts are images. So what is a thought without an image?
That's like asking a blind person, what does a tree look like, isn't it?
Yeah, it kind of is.
I don't know, because I don't know what to say. Because professionally, I work with blind people on my software. So what they do is they use a product called JAWS, and they have a headset on with both ears covered, and in one ear, the computer is telling them as they scroll around on the screen, you're telling them where they are on the screen, and they know where they need to go to get to a particular field to enter some information. And they're listening to that in one ear, but they're also doing customer service. So you called about your cell phone bill and you need to work something out. They're listening to you in this ear. They're listening to two different audio streams at the same time and reacting as if you and I would react. And we're looking at the screen using our sense of sight to see the screen and our sense of hearing to listen to the customer in both ears, right? They can't do that. So they're able to develop this different way of perception with their ears that you and I can't imagine to be able to compensate. So somehow, the those of us who visualize differently than others, we are compensating differently. So it doesn't make sense for us when somebody asks us to visualize things that don't exist other than the idea of those things. I don't know how to answer the question that you're asking.
Yeah, me neither. The best explanation that I've heard, it's like a computer without the monitor, right? The computer, inside the computer is where all the thoughts are happening. It's where all the actual data input output is happening. Mm-hmm. But the monitor represents the visualization of what the computer is. So that's kind of how I describe it. It's like I have the computer without the monitor. The computer's working. It still works. It does all those things. It thinks. It has the ideas, all of that. It's just not visual.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Here's another phrase. What does the phrase, "I have a song stuck in my head," mean to you?
Words of the song and the rhythm of the song just goes through my head and won't stop. I think it's like, for me, it's like hiccups. I'll have the hiccups. I'll hold my breath for as long as I can and hope that they'll stop. And with the song, I'll try and hold it in and try not to sing it. And if I hold it in, maybe it'll go away. For the most part, I want to kill it, so I kill it by not singing it.
Okay. So why's that? Why do you want to kill it? Is it just because you don't like the song, or you just don't want it bugging you?
I don't want to give it space in my head.
Yeah, see, they're welcome in my head, unless it's one I don't like. Then I try to get it out. But if it's one I like, and you're welcome, man. Let's do this thing.
Yeah, no, I don't think so. I think that it's usually like an annoying song that I don't want in my head. I don't think I get good songs stuck in my head, or maybe if I do, it's I like it, so I don't consider it to be a problem. Don't consider it to be a song stuck in my head because I enjoy it. But I don't think that happens. I think the only songs that get actually stuck in my head are songs that are annoying.
Hey, fill the world with good vibes and positivity with our new Soul Relief brand t-shirts. Check it out at shanesbraindomain.com.
Is that just as crazy to you that people can hear in their minds as people can see in their minds?
Yeah, to be able to imagine a smell or a taste or a sound, all those things are unfathomable to me. I listened to your first two podcasts, and you had Dylan on, and to listen to Dylan's explanation of imagining a cookie and tasting a cookie at a level 8 out of 10, tasting and feeling the cookie in her mouth, that's like alien stuff to me.
Yeah, me too.
How does a brain come up with a taste and a feel of something that doesn't exist in your present? Yeah, no, being able to smell, hear, I would recognize the sound if I heard it, but I can't hear it. I can't imagine hearing it.
In this episode, we will be referring to what we call the nature picture. If you would like to view the nature picture to play along and better understand what we're talking about, you can find it on shanesbraindomain.com in the Aphantasia and Beyond section. If you are unable to take a look at the nature picture, it is a picture of a grove of tall trees with the sun shining brightly through the trees. There is a blue camping chair next to a peaceful flowing river with a campfire nearby. Go ahead and take a look at that nature picture that I sent you.
Yeah, got it.
Can you put yourself in that picture?
No.
Can you try and think of yourself there or anything like that? Can you get there at all?
I can think about wanting to go there. I can think about places that I've been similar to there. No, I can't put myself in that picture at all.
The way I decided to throw this in, I was at a party last year and I brought out the Aphantasia stuff because it had come up. And so I was with a group of people and I was asking them the questions now going through. And there was one guy there that his mind was just amazing me. Like half the things he said, I couldn't even understand what he was saying. It was so crazy. But at one point, he turned to this picture on the wall. There was a picture of, I don't know, something, but there was sun shining down through. And he said, well, let me ask you a question. Can you put yourself in that picture and feel the sun on your skin? I said, not even a little bit. I can't even imagine being able to do such a thing. So, I said, so can you? He said, absolutely. I am there, and I can feel the sun on my skin. I can walk around. I can explore.
Well, that reminds me, going back to your interview with Dylan again, when she could see a page of answers to questions that might come up in a test, and she can just look at the answers. I wonder, going back to high school and what a poor student I was, how many of those other kids were cheating like that? And they were
all of them were, man.
Sucks. That sucks, because I have to memorize, and my memorization is just by repeating to be able to get something in my head. And then I just have to pull up the memory. I can't pull up a picture of the memory and just copy off the cheat sheet. I don't know why they give out degrees to people who can do things like that.
Right. That was my reaction too when my wife told me she could do that. She could pull up her notes in her mind and read them. Like, that is cheating.
Absolutely. Those are the people that make something of themselves in life, and the rest of us are just stuck with serving them.
All right. In general, when you close your eyes, what do you see?
Dark. I mean, there can be flashes of light, flashes of not flashes, just areas of brightness, or brighter black than other areas, but it's all black.
Can you think of nothing if you want to?
No, there's always something bothering me. A lot of my, not self-thoughts, thoughts about myself are negative. I think they're goal-oriented. What can be accomplished with something that I'm thinking about. But just my self-perception is what gets stuck in my head more often than not. And I guess it's probably just too much ego. The ego of someone who is not satisfied with himself.
Yeah, this is interesting because obviously we both have aphantasia, but it's again really interesting to notice some of our differences. And I think what it's coming down to a little bit is just the simplicity, I guess, of our personalities. It sounds like your mind is less carefree than mine, maybe. Because my mind is very simple, and I don't really overthink things. I just kind of let things flow and go as they are. And so a lot of times, and that's why I can get to what I call thinking of nothing pretty easily, because there's really not a whole lot going on in there in the first place, right? It's easy for me to just have no thoughts going through my head, relax.
I don't have a carefree state. I don't have a state of mind that allows me to do that. What was the last vacation you took? Was it recent?
The last long vacation I went, like a week long, was to Destin, Florida. That was like a year and a half ago or something like that.
So when you were on vacation, did you feel the need to be busy, to do stuff?
A little bit, yeah. I mean, a lot of it was, let's go sit at the beach all day, right? So it's like, we're going to go do something, but it's not going to be much, right?
I get the enjoying the beach. If I go on vacation, it's like everything has to be busy. If we go someplace and we sleep in, I feel like, and I'm on vacation, right? I'm on vacation. But if we sleep in, I feel like, oh crap, I've just wasted, 2 hours. We could have been doing something. We should have been doing something. We should not could have. We should have been doing something. Because this is only a short period of time and we've got to enjoy it. So we've got to do stuff.
Yeah, I can't really relate to that. I'm not that way.
That's from the morning till night. I feel like I got to be involved in something. I don't have a rest state.
Yeah, that is interesting because it's one of those things, again, where everybody just thinks, like we did, and before we discovered we had aphantasia, we just thought everybody was like we are. And sometimes the same thing happens when we're both aphantastic. We start to think, oh, it's a lot alike, right? But it's really not. We have, again, this little sliver of something we can relate to, but then you get in these details and we're really different again. And the same thing happens with people who answer, 6 on the Apple graph. They have that in common, but that's about it. You go any deeper and everybody's different. So that's cool to identify that difference in us.
Yeah, I got to think that everybody would be jealous of someone who can taste a chocolate chip cookie just by thinking about it.
Yeah.
Right. I want to taste that cookie right now.
Right. Yeah, and a lot of people are jealous of me that I can, think of nothing. So we all have our things.
I don't think of that as an advantage. I think that is a disadvantage. Like blindness. People, you ask somebody who's blind, would they rather be blind with all the side benefits that they get because they're blind, or would they rather have their eyesight? I don't know. I've never done the survey, but I would assume that 10 out of 10 people would say I would rather have my sight and lose the ability to hear 2 things in my ears at the same time, or whatever other disabilities they gain because of their disabilities.
So let me ask you this. If the wish fairy right now could come and grant you the ability to visualize, would you take it?
If I could choose, like trading with Dylan's mind, to be able to imagine to the degree that I can see the answers on this page, I can taste the food that I am imagining, I would take it. Yeah, I would take it. I can't imagine what price there would be to pay for that. It seems like that would just be a win for me.
Do you think there would be any negatives?
I can't imagine, and there we go, imagining with a weak mind. I can't imagine that there could be a downside to gaining the ability to do something that I can't do.
So you obviously see upsides to being able to visualize. Do you see any upsides to not being able to visualize? Is there anything the way it works right now where you're like, I like it? What are the upsides to having aphantasia? Do you have any?
I don't think there are any, at least for me.
Really? Okay, so I want to delve into this a little bit more because I've always been at peace with it, but I belong to a aphantasia group on Facebook. There are people in there that are just pissed, right? They just feel gypped, and they have, felt real depression and stuff over it. So it sounds like you may be able to relate more to those people than I can.
I don't focus on it. I don't sit around, bemoaning the fact that I can't visualize.
Okay.
You asked me if I would like to be able to visualize. Absolutely, I would like to be able to visualize, and I don't think I wouldn't think twice about it.
All right, let's talk about reading. When you read a novel, is it like a movie in your mind or something else?
No, it's just the words on the page and the description. So I guess I enjoy when a book is descriptive. That puts everything in perspective for me because they're describing the things that I need to know to make the book interesting.
People, talk about visualizing the characters, and many of them can do it in great detail. What is that like for you? I mean, obviously the characters exist somehow in your mind.
I don't know. I don't enjoy reading that much, and I'm not sure if there's a reason for that. I do enjoy books on tape. So, and that's basically, to me, that's the same thing as reading. But I remember back when I read, more books. I read The Stand by Stephen King, and I read Tolstoy, the famous Tolstoy book, War and Peace. And those are 2 authors that are highly descriptive, and everything that you need to know about the situation that is happening on the page is part of the description. So that helps. I don't feel like I'm missing anything because I can't imagine what's being said. I just know that those things are there because the author has described them. I understand the difference between, watching a movie and reading a book because I don't see anything when I'm reading a book. So there's a huge difference. It's not the same thing at all. Watching a movie is seeing images, and reading a book is reading about descriptions.
Right. Have you ever said, I like the book better than the movie?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. And, when I talk to people about movies, there are things, details that other people see in movies that I don't see. But when you talk to somebody about reading a book, you all read the same description. Nobody's getting anything more out of the book. I assume nobody's getting more out of the book than anybody else because everybody's reading the same description. Whereas in movies, they're trying to move the descriptions into a visual format, and not everybody's going to pay attention to everything that they've created, right?
Yeah. So what other people describe, though, I mean, you're talking about descriptions and information where other people, when they read a book, they are in a whole nother world and it's all around them, and they're seeing all of it in great detail. And so they're seeing this character looks exactly like this, and this is his voice, and this is her voice. And there's so much. So they've created this world when they read a book and they've experienced it, right? So they go and see the movie and they don't like the movie because it doesn't match what they did in their minds. That's why most people say the book was better than the movie, because the movie probably cut out some things and changed some things, and then it doesn't look like what they thought it was going to look like. It doesn't sound like what they thought it was going to sound like, and so they're disappointed by it. But in my world, I always like the movie better because it's more than words on a page. I get to see it. I get to experience it. It sounds to me like you're having a better experience with a book than I am. Why is that? Can you describe that?
Yeah, I think just there's a knowledge transfer from the imagination of the author to my mind. I don't think the transfer is complete. I think it's an incomplete upload when I watch the movie because for various reasons. One is because they always have to cut things out that were in the book that made the book a little bit more special, and then the other is just the direct connection with how the author was thinking. And if I don't see the movie, then I can assume that the author and I are seeing the exact same thing, because if I see the movie and it looks different than I think it was being described, then I know that the director had a different image than I did, or a different imagined the book differently than I did, and then there's a disconnect. Whereas I can just assume that the author and I see things identically when I read his book, her book.
Wow, that is really interesting. Even though you have aphantasia, you seem to be having a deeper level of experience with some of these things than I think a lot of us do. Because I've interviewed other aphantasia people that kind of say the same thing to me. It's like it's words on a page, and so I'm never really disappointed in the movie because I don't have any preconceived ideas of what it's supposed to look like or be. When I read, I hardly ever read novels. In fact, I don't know how long it's been since I've tried to read a novel. I just can't get into it. I guess it's because my thoughts, again, are so distant and vague that I have a hard time even really experiencing it on any deep level. It's just words on a page, and I get bored with it. So do you have a different experience with audiobooks?
I'm a slow reader, and it takes a lot more work to read the book. And with audiobooks, I can do that while I'm driving, and that can be a form of entertainment.
Yeah, I like audiobooks better too because, again, it's just easier.
Yeah.
And the other thing is if I am going to read or listen, it's usually, nonfiction stuff. It's information based, because then my mind just has to take in information. It doesn't have to try and keep up with a story or anything like that.
Yeah.
All right. What do you do to fall asleep?
Close my eyes and wait.
Okay. Is it pretty easy for you?
Yeah, no, it's not too much of a problem usually.
What does the phrase counting sheep mean to you?
What does it mean?
Have you ever tried it?
There's no way. There's no way that I can do it. I mean, I can count, I remember the concept because, yeah, it's in cartoons. It's people talk about it in conversation, counting sheep. So, yeah, I think, okay, well, people say that you're supposed to count sheep to fall asleep. So go to bed, and I don't know what they're talking about.
Right. Yeah, I remember as a kid really trying that and thinking, what do they mean? Like, I couldn't, instead of thinking, oh, I must have aphantasia, instead I just thought, oh, it's just a figure of speech, right? It doesn't mean anything. All right, how vivid and detailed are your dreams?
I don't remember dreams much, like to the point that I don't know if I dream. I've read somewhere that, everybody dreams every night, every time they're sleeping, but I don't know if that's true.
Anything that says everyone, like any blanket statement that covers everybody, I don't believe it. We're too unique.
I do have a weird thing about my brain. So I have self-diagnosed myself with frontal lobe epilepsy. And I didn't know what that was for the longest time. Probably started realizing that there was something going on in my 30s, maybe. So that when I say something going on, that's when I first started having these episodes. And an episode, I'll describe an episode to you. I'll be sitting here, at my computer or talking to someone, and all of a sudden something will give me a thought, right? So my mind will start trying to follow that thought. And it's not like a thought, it's like a memory. Like, wait a minute, I remember something, and then I'll start to see a guy. And sometimes there's somebody next to him too, but it's always usually a guy. And he's usually sitting down, and he's usually got some sort of a physical disability, but not major, just some minor inconveniencing disability. And I don't know how I know that, because I don't see him moving or walking, but I see him. And as I'm starting to focus in on him and see him more clearly, and remember seeing him more clearly because it's a memory, then I will start feeling like I'm about to black out, right? So what I've self-diagnosed, so how I self-diagnose myself is, Googling my symptoms and then reading about other symptoms and what happens, as that memory is starting to materialize, and what happens during it and what happens after it. And as soon as I start to feel like it's coming, and then, it's gone. And I feel like my brain has just almost blacked out. Sometimes my heart races, and then everything calms down, and everything takes a while to get back to normal. But there's an actual image of a guy who I can see for a moment, very brief moment, before it all fades away, and then I can't see it again until the next episode. And the next episode might not be for months.
That is so crazy.
Yeah. For the longest time, I had no explanation for it. I thought, why am I seeing this guy? What does it mean? My family would say, oh, it's somebody from your past, so it's an ancestor of yours that wants to give you a message or something like that. And I never bought into that, because it's not like somebody that I recognize. The memory is there in my head, and I'm trying to focus in on it and isolate it so that I remember who the guy is and why I know him and where I know him from, before it all fades away and it's gone completely. And then as the brain continues through the process, it's called an aura. I don't know why it's called an aura, but that's what they call it. Then the episode goes away and everything else does too.
Is it a bad experience? Is it a pleasant experience? What is it like?
It's exciting, because I think I'm gonna remember the guy, and I want more time, right? Because it only lasts such a brief moment as it's clarifying, and I want more. I want it to last longer, but the longer it lasts, the more likely I am to actually black out, right? I want it to go longer, but at the same time, I'm glad when it doesn't, because it stops just before blacking out. I've gone to doctors and I've described what I go through, and they brush me off because they don't know what to do about it. And they it's not that they wouldn't didn't want to help me is that they don't know how to help me because they can't diagnose it because it's so rare. It only happens every few months, and I'm not going to walk around with, monitors on my head and in various places for 4 or 5 months waiting for the next episode because I never know when it's going to happen. The worst experiences I've had, when I say worst, is because I felt like I got the closest to blacking out was walking through the entrance at Disney World in Florida. And it happened. And I don't know why it happened. I never know why it happens. Somebody's talking to me and they say something and all of a sudden this memory starts. And I don't know that what they're saying has anything to do with it. But for whatever reason, this memory starts. And for some reason, it happened as I was walking through the turnstile at Disney World. And I had to lay down on the ground to avoid, actually, if I did black out, bashing my head. Within a few seconds, it passed, and then my head and my heart took, another half a minute or so to recover to the point that I could stand up again and went about my day. Had a great time.
Yeah, that's a unique one and very interesting.
Has nothing to do with aphantasia, but
well, it does in a way because you see an image, right?
I do. Yeah, so I have the ability to see an image. Just it's maybe it's because I'm on the edge of unconsciousness.
It's time for Youphantasia, the part of the show that lets you chime in and share your thoughts, insights, and experiences. Today we have Michael chiming in. Today's question is, are there different rooms or compartments in your mind?
The best way to describe it is in looking at the files on your computer. So there may be like a main family folder, and then you click on that and there might be folders for each individual. Or you can also sort, right? You can sort by event or by time. Kind of like the internet, right? You click on one thing, then you click on the next thing, click on the next thing. Next thing you know, you're neck deep in cat videos.
If you would like to participate and hear yourself featured on the podcast, go to shanesbraindomain.com and click on the Youphantasia section.
If you want to recall a memory, can you see it in your mind?
No.
When you're recalling a memory, can you tell if it's in first person or third person? Third person meaning you're in the memory. You're seeing yourself in the memory.
You tell me other people see their own memories as third person?
Mm-hmm. Some people do, yeah.
It's their memory.
Some people do it both ways, but I've had people tell me that by default, their memories are in third person.
It's their memory. It's by default, it's first person. How's that possible?
I don't know. I don't get any of it. I'm just trying to bring in the information. I don't know what any of it means.
Wow. I don't get that at all.
How would you describe how your mind stores information?
Being able to recall information, it is pretty poor. I don't have any sense of what that is, except if I had something memorized. Some memories just make themselves. Some memorizations seem to just make themselves. Like I've been working on learning Spanish for 2 years. That's gone much worse than I thought it was going to go, or I hoped it was going to go. I thought I would be fluent within a couple of years. I thought that it wouldn't be that hard living in a Spanish-speaking country where English is rare. Thought that would come a lot faster, especially the fact that I'm studying every day, 7 days a week for 2 years. But it's not coming because if I don't find some connection to the word, then the recall isn't there. So storing information, non-existent. If I haven't memorized it or made a word association with it, there is no recall.
What does the phrase "search your mind" mean to you?
I don't know what that means. It's there's nothing happening other than just thinking about it.
Does how you visualize affect how you perform in your career?
Yeah, my lack of visualization. I feel like I think those things are a setback. I feel like those things are a setback for a lot of aspects of my life.
If you were to try and give a general description of how your mind works and what you see or don't see in your mind's eye, how would you describe it?
I don't know how to describe that. I don't see anything.
What I have come up with, if somebody asks me, how does your mind work? I would say it's quiet and dark. That's the best description I can come up with.
Yeah. I think mine's dark and desperate.
I've kind of like doing these little phrases we have in our society. What does the phrase "go to your happy place" mean to you?
Stop thinking negative.
Okay. Does it take on any other things? Are there certain things you think about to replace it, or?
No, I mean, I guess I can think about my wife, extremely happy in my relationship. And that's, I guess if you ask me to go to my happy place, that would be the first thing that I would think of, is I would think about my wife and my relationship with her. And that makes me happy.
What about this one? I can't unsee it.
Unseeing something doesn't resonate with me. Like somebody was telling me last week that their father-in-law would wear underwear to the point that it was see-through. That was like very old, worn-out underwear. And then, when they would get up in the middle of the night to do something and there were people up, that he would just be out walking the house in his underwear. And, there was very little between what, the underwear was supposed to be hiding and the people who didn't want to see it. So he said something like that. I can't unsee that. Well, I don't have a problem with it, because for me, it's just the disgusting idea that this guy was not very modest in what he chose to wear. But
yeah, for you and I, we can think about that, and it's not that big of a deal because it's just a thought. But for other people, they'll see it. The image will come. And I've had a lot of people describe that there are images in their head that they wish they could get rid of, but they keep popping up. Can't unsee it.
Yeah.
And I can't really relate to that in that way. All right, man. Well, thanks a lot. I appreciate you. And I thought that was really interesting. Some good stuff.
It's been fun.
All right. Well, good to see you again. Thanks for the support and everything. And have fun in Ecuador.
Okay. Thanks, Shane. Bye.
Yep. Bye.
If you like what you hear, please subscribe, follow, and engage with us, and share it with your friends and family as we continue to explore this fascinating subject. For additional information about this episode or Shane's Brain, check out the show notes. Thanks for listening to the Discovering Your Mind podcast. You are beautifully unique.